A great evening, my friends, and to all our participants. I'm Legend Vergara Alfonso from Apalit, Pampanga. Once again, it is undeniably a great pleasure in my part to be your facilitator for tonight's webinar series, The Three Eyes, Inquiries, Investigation, and Immersion. And in behalf of Beyond Books Publishing, thank you so much for making yourself available to all our dear participants. I am sure that you will captivate a lot of knowledge correlated to our focus reading on related topic coming from our ingenious speaker. Before anything else, let me hand you some of the reminders and our online house rules. First, do not share the Google Meet code. Moderators will be validating the email of the participants. Use the same email address that you registered with us. If you will use a different email address, inform us immediately, the ICT or the IT group. Please mute your microphone during the webinar proper and turn it on during the open forum or if you have a question. Be polite. Do not interrupt. If you wish to speak or have any points or motion, raise your hand. The facilitator or host will recognize you and allow you to speak. Be prepared for technical difficulties. In case of technical difficulties, leave the meeting and rejoin the meeting. For participants who have friends that are interested to participate and were not able to join the Google Meet or the Zoom meeting, we are live in our YouTube channel and Facebook page. Please subscribe and follow. Please set your courtesy and the friends and join us in singing the Makabayan song, followed by a prayer for the supervision of our divine God.
Tungkulin ko'y gagampanan
Thank you. To deliver an opening remarks, let us give our program chair a big warm round of virtual applause, Dr. Arlene T. Carlos.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our third week of our Research Talks webinar series on three I's: inquiries, investigatory, and immersion. We are very grateful for your tremendous support for our research talks. As of tonight, we have 166 viewers now, and we are fortunate to have the support of our IT, Ma'am Myra and Sir Jaben, and of course to the CEO of Beyond Books Publication, Sir Leonilo Capulso, most especially to our senior high school students who followed us all the way from the start of our research talks. I sincerely hope you will enjoy tonight and the next days of our webinar series. Thank you for the participation of our viewers. Thank you very much. Sir Lijan.
Thank you so much, Dr. Arlene T. Carlos, our program chair in this webinar series. And of course, in behalf, no, and to provide us some words coming from the CEO, President of Beyond Books Publication, and in behalf, once again, we have Dr. Arlene T. Carlos.
Good evening once again, viewers. In behalf of our CEO, Sir Leonilo Capulso of Beyond Books Publication, we have been on air for several weeks now. Dear viewers, to our students, hoping that you will catch up on our previous webinars, you can watch our past webinars on our Beyond Books Publication YouTube channel. Again, thank you so much for your support, and don't forget to buy our new books. We have three I's. We have Practical Research 1, which is qualitative research, and Practical Research 2, which is quantitative research. If you wish to publish your article, journals, and research studies, there is the iJams where we can assist you. So later we will flash the number or the cell phone number where you can call us so that we can assist you on your publication. Thank you very much. Sir
Thank you very
Lijan.
much, Dr. Arlene Carlos. I know you are all excited, and so am I. Pareho po tayong excited. And to our very dear friends, participants, allow me to present to you our ingenious speaker, express our keenness to become accustomed of such information which can be of great assistance in our studies. A full-time assistant professor from the Faculty of Arts and Letters, has been teaching in the University of Santo Tomas for 15 years now. He used to work as assistant professor or assistant professorial lecturer in Letran College, Manila, St. Scholastica's College, Manila, and De La Salle University, Manila. Graduated his Bachelor of Science degree in Development Communication, major in Community Broadcasting from the University of the Philippines, Los Baños. Finished his certification in Professional Education from the University of the Philippines in the Visayas, Iloilo campus. Finished his degree in Master in Education, major in English as a language from the University of the Philippines, Cebu. Also finished all his academic subjects for his Doctor of Philosophy in Language Education from the University of the Philippines, Diliman, which is basic grammar and composition, reading and critical thinking skills, academic writing, English communication, English research, structures of the English language, oral communication, business communication, speech communication, corporate communication, and purposive communication. Wow. His research interest includes language in business, language learning, communication styles, language in education, communication language and technology, and mediated communication. He also conducts seminars of situational leadership, public speaking, teamwork in the workplace, and workshops on communicative competence, teaching grammar, language teaching methodologies, research writing, market research, and qualitative, qualitative research analysis. He serves as a training consultant to Strand Asia and on-call speaker for Bibal Publishing CPD trainings and all over the country. And to talk about reading unrelated topics, may I introduce to you, my dear participants, an exceptional and reliable professor. Let us welcome Mr. Emilito F. Sarmago. Palakpakan po natin siya. Hello, sir.
Hello.
Kumusta po
Hear me?
kayo? Thank you so much for giving us your time, and you may now start your talk. Thank you so much.
Okay, please allow me to share my screen. Thank you. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes,
Sir?
sir.
Yes, we can. Yes.
Thank you so much. Maayong gabi kaninyong tanan sa tanan natong nagpaminaw diha sa Visayas ug Mindanao. Maayong gabi kaninyong tanan sa atong mga or our friends here in Luzon area. Magandang gabi. At saka yung mga friends natin dyan sa Pampanga. I don't know if I can pronounce this properly. Mayap Abeng. Okay, Mayap Abeng. Tama ba, sir? Lee John Alfonso?
Yes, sir. Maya
Okay.
Pabengi po.
So tonight I was tasked, and I am very lucky to share to you some of my knowledge or my understanding on the topic related to reading related topics in writing the review of related literature. I was given 1 hour time frame, and hopefully I can make use of the 1 hour time frame given or allocated to me. So as what was introduced to you a while ago, I am Mr. Emilito Flores Sarmago, but I prefer to be called Sir Emil to my students and to my peers also. I would like to acknowledge people from Cebu who are joining us here tonight. I also, gikan ko sa Cebu, taga Cebu ko. So I speak Cebuano. Sa mga taga Davao, mayong gabi kaninyong tanan. Ug sa atong mga friends sa Manila, I was somehow conversationally I can speak Tagalog well. But for tonight's presentation, allow me to make use of the English language generally, knowing for a fact that we have students of research here so that they can hone their skill in understanding the English language and research for that matter. Okay, so I'm from the Department of English, Faculty of Arts and Letters, University of Santo Tomas. And as what mentioned a while ago, my research interests fall under categories language education, English language studies, language and communication. So every time I start my speech or every time I'm invited to talk, I'm very much keen in using memes. I love memes. I studied on memes, and we found out based on our studies that memes are also very effective communication material in order for us to learn something and in order for us to take note of the realities, because memes contain ironies and memes contain challenges that we're going to. So for tonight's meme, I have here kumusta ang thesis, and usually the reply kulang pa sa RL or kulang pa ng RRL. Usually yan ang mga usual na sagot pag kinumusta tayo sa mga thesis natin. Um, of course, we are always having this as a form. Another one, another meme that I'll be sharing tonight. Ang walang kamatayang RRL. So we have this typical response from our students, our advisees and thesis, even in the university level, when we are asking them, kumusta na ang RRL? Usually, walang kamatayang RRL. So dyan tayo nagtatagal. So basically tonight, I am going to start also with a reality check. Okay, pag sinasabing reality check, ano ba talaga ang realities natin when it comes to writing the review-related literature. So here, reality check number 1, writing the RRL is a challenging task in the process, of course. So tonight's talk will be focusing more on the challenges that students like you and even some teachers in writing their paper for their dissertation or for their master's degree, they're able to come up with these challenges as well. Another challenge or reality check is looking for related topics is a daunting task in research process. Okay, of course, it would always come into our coming to our senses that looking for related topics seem to be a great and very much daunting task that we're going to tackle. And of course, reading for related topics is a tedious task in the research process. So tonight, I will be, Sir, Dr. Alfonso, can you please mute?
Yes, sir.
Please, because it's very noisy. Every time someone into our or someone chats, it's going to be very okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Sorry for that.
Now, so when you're talking about reality check about reading, always remember that reading is somehow or a skill, okay, a skill that we have to master. Your senior high school years or even your junior high school years, you are aware that reading skill is a very important skill that we have to master. The same holds true when you're doing your research. Okay, reading is very important. And if you're aware that reading as a skill entails a lot of stages. There are stages of reading because reading is a recursive process, meaning if you cannot understand the reading materials or if you understand the words or the paragraphs, you can still go back from the very beginning or just somewhere in the part where you cannot understand. So reading is a skill that we have to master as researchers and young researchers, students listening right now. And of course,
sir,
reading,
excuse me po.
Yes.
We're so sorry. I already talked to the IT with regards to your concern. And yung pong PowerPoint ninyo, sir, hindi po siya gumagalaw.
Oh, really?
Please present.
Okay, I'll check, sir.
Your PowerPoint is not moving, sir.
Okay, thank you.
So, naglalag siya, sir. Hindi pa po siya nakikita.
Okay.
Oo nga po.
And to our IT po, pakiusap po ni sir na yung pong noise coming from our participants while they are giving their comments po. Please.
I'll turn off my video. Baka mahina masyadong signal ko. Okay, I'll start sharing again.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, can you see my slides now?
Yes, I can say it, sir.
Yes, we can.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Okay na po.
Okay.
Thank you so
see it?
much, sir.
Okay, we're done with this. I'm done with the meme. Nakita niyo yung meme ko kanina? So magti-take two ba ako? So yun.
No, no, no.
Okay. The reality checks a while ago. Okay, done with this. And now, after giving memes and doing a reality check, I usually start my lecture with a quote. And this time, I will be sharing to you a quote from Toni Morrison. According to Toni Morrison, access to knowledge is the supreme act of truly great civilizations. So here, in the understanding of your role as researchers, young researchers of senior high school years, you have a lot of potentials. And I agree when there is this brouhaha taking on social network that the senior high school students got potentials. I agree with that. You have all the potentials that you require in order for you to become great researchers and great persons someday. Okay, so I am here to challenge you for you not to be afraid of research, because research can be done as long as you're prepared for it. And in the fact that you are here in the seminar and the two other sessions previously before me, then that means you are very excited to learn about research. And I'm very happy to all the 209 participants right now in our Zoom page or in our Zoom. Then thank you so much for joining us tonight. Okay, so here are the objectives that I'll be sharing for my talk. So basically, I'll start with the understanding of the stages of reading. We have the pre-reading stage, the reading stage, and the post-reading stage. And here, I'm just going to determine the challenges, and afterwards, we will determine the strategies, okay? The strategies that we need to take note in order for us to become successful. Here in the reading-related issues in writing the RRL, of course, determining the issues and factors in selecting topics in the writing or in the process of the writing the RRL. Okay, so napaka-importanting attributes to, napaka-importanting skills, and I hope you can learn something out of tonight's presentation. Okay, according to Abigail Adams, learning must be sought for with ardor and attended to with diligence. I got lots of students who are considering themselves average students or considering themselves not intelligent or not so on the side of the intellectuals, but when they are guided well and they are very diligent with their task as researcher, they are able to come up with best research papers. Okay, so don't be afraid, even if we consider ourselves not that intelligent enough, as long as you're diligent in doing your research paper, everything will be just fine. Okay, don't be scared. Lessen the anxiety, lessen the stress, because everything will follow on smoothly as long as you have your diligent mind in accordance to the work that you're going to deal with. Okay, so let's start without much further ado. Let's start with challenge number one. In dealing with challenge number one, we are still in the pre-reading stage. So when you say pre-reading, we are not actually doing the reading stage yet, or we are not into the reading process yet. Here, we are preparing ourselves to the task of the actual reading of the materials that we are able to take note in relation to the problem or to the thesis questions that we have in mind. Okay, so the first challenge is determining the related topics. Okay, so sa mga taga Cebuano, mga Cebuano dyan, kinahanglan tanaw na to, determine lang nato nga importante, okay, ang atong mga sources of information o ang basic information that we need in order for us to get through the process of research. Okay, so in the determining the related topics as challenge number one, we have to come up with a strategy, and the strategy is be mindful in choosing information related to this study. So take note of the keyword mindfulness. And we have to be very conscious, we have to be very keen on the possibility of falling short on this, but as long as you're mindful, you can never go wrong, okay? So in order to understand this challenge, I have here a sample working title of the research. And this is just a working title. It's not the final title yet, but just for the purpose of tonight's discussion, so that you can relate to, we have a working title fit for tonight's topic. So you have in mind a working title, Social Media's Impact on the Younger Generation's Body Image. So when you have this working title, in challenge number one, you have to be very keen on the information that you are looking for, okay, related to the problematic, related to the research questions, and even to the research objectives. So here, if we have that kind of working title, I might as well dwell with certain issues such as mental health, body image, teenager, social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and so on and so forth. So when I limit my search on these issues, I have in mind, I'm really as certain and so sure that there is an understanding that you are familiar with your research problem and you're aware on what to do next, okay? Or I could also have a strategy called synonymy, wherein I can just go directly to the synonyms of the keywords in my title or in my research problem. Then I can automatically browse through and look for the information necessary. Okay, so for example, when we're talking about teenagers, we could have younger generations or Generation Z for that matter. So now your job before the actual reading, you have to come up with your strategy. The Boolean strategy, which I know some of you might be very familiar with in your research classes, your teacher have told you that in order to limit your research because of the availability of information, and I'm highlighting here, you could use Google Scholar. Okay, Google Scholar is better than the regular Google that we are using because Google Scholar can give us series of information that might highly be reflected or possibly be aware of to use in your scientific research. Okay, so you can make use of the following strategies. You can put and in between two of the major keywords that you want to use. You can put or, you can put a negative sign before the second word, and you can put on quotation marks. Okay, and there are more actually, but I'm just limiting to the 4 because these are very, very crucial. So what will happen when you do research using Google Scholar? When you make use of an and in your Google search, you are directed towards understanding of or coming up with issue or materials that is very much focused on what you desire. So social media and body image, social media and body image, or media and body image. So all these elements will be the ones included in your search. Okay, so when you use and, so 2 elements will be there, shorten. So instead of millions of it, you can have less than 3,000 for that matter, or even more than that. Okay. So another aspect is when we are using the or. Okay, so when you use or, you can have younger generation or you can have teenagers or younger generation or even social media for that matter. So when you use a negative plus the second word, you are now directed for a fact that it will limit, okay, limit the number of available information for you. So for example, here, when you're researching for Apple, you put minus technology or tech, then all related materials on technology will not be part of your search, which is very good because you limit your ability to look for possible sources. Okay? And the use of quotation marks somehow give us a clear understanding that there is the involvement of either. So it could be social media or body image alone, or media, or both, or even so body image or social media alone can be done together with the. So quotation marks could also be very important to use in your material. And lastly, when you are in the pre-reading stage and highlighting the significance of looking for the best material, the in thing now in research writing is not just publication, okay? It is now, what's more important now is the citation index. So when we're talking about citation index, when you search for the material, you can take note on the number, okay? The number of cited materials. So of course, if we want to put more on credibility, we should look for the more number of citations, okay? The more number of citations, the better, because it would assume that a lot of writers took note of this book or this article and so on and so forth, and then we can make use of that. Now let's move on to challenge number 2. In the pre-reading stage, sourcing of the most reliable related topics. This is a very important challenge that we have to address, because failure to address this material or this challenge, we might find it problematic later on once we start writing the material. So your strategy, the strategy that you need to do is to be very keen on the credibility of the sources of related topics. Okay, so keen and be aware on the credibility of the sources that you are aiming for. You want to be included in the paper. So here is an example of credibility of sources hierarchy. So this is a hierarchy. If you want to take note of this, you have to make sure that you know the difference between an unreviewed, editorially reviewed, and peer-reviewed. Okay, so what's the difference? Ideally, when we're talking about peer-reviewed, this is the most credible source of information that you can get because they are reviewed by experts in the field. Okay, one example here is the academic journals. So academic journals are very good materials that has high level of credibility. Okay, the next one is the editorially reviewed material. So when you're talking about editorially reviewed material, these are reviewed by editor more for grammar than content, such as in the popular magazines, and sometimes even Wikipedia could fall into the category editorially reviewed. And finally, the least credible of them all is the unreviewed. Okay, not reviewed, example, blog posts or Facebook status, for example. So make sure you might not be able to make use of this in your research paper, not unless it's really vital in the problematique of your research. In addition, you have to look for materials that you have the possibility of looking for the best important information. You can browse through the internet. In today's challenging times, in this pandemic, you cannot go directly to the library. So you're very lucky you have your World Wide Web and everything is in the tip of your fingers. So you can browse through the internet, look for international institutions, be it organizations or be it government organizations or non-government organizations that will be readily could help you in coming up with information that you might require in your paper. Science Direct for senior high students here listening right now who are into the science field, you can make use of Science Direct as a very good and highly credible sources of information. Of course, Google Scholar, I highly highlight Google Scholar to be used in your searches so that it's more or less rather than coming up with the usual Google searches that we're familiar with. And for those in the field of medicine or in the field of medical field, you can make use of PubMed. And to those who are familiar with Mendeley, you can also make use of Mendeley as sources of relevant information. And even in your own university, like in our case, in the University of Santo Tomas, we have to be part of, we have to have an active account so that we can go through and browse through a lot of reliable information from our digital library, heritage library, and all other resources in the internet available, since we cannot go to the library yet for now. So the reliability of the sources of information should first, and this will fall under the category pre-reading strategies. Okay, so now let's move on to the reading stage, okay, the actual reading stage of your review of related literature. So the challenge, reading selected topics. For young people like you, I know it's always a challenge to read tons and tons of journals, to read a lot of books, to read a lot of information from the internet. You can easily get tired of reading books or academics book rather than reading the text of your FB friends, okay? So because somehow there is always a different context for that matter, okay? But as early as now, if you're planning to make it good in your research papers, you have to develop your strategy in coming up into terms with your reading skills, okay? So for the readings challenge, the strategy that I'll be sharing is to try to define precise activities to consider in the task of getting the most related information. So in order for you not to waste your time reading materials, skimming, scanning materials, familiar with those terms in your classes, there could always be a factor to reckon with. Okay, so try to define precise activities. So the preciseness of your activities will somehow give you ample time to revise and to come up with a better understanding of your problematique. So in the example working title, Social Media's Impact on the Younger Generation's Body Image, I'm now able to come up with the following elements of my sources. So when I'm going to go through my sources, I have to bear in mind some of the elements that I need to consider. So I may look for trends and patterns, the themes of the materials that I am planning to read. I'll also go through the debates and conflicts. I love this. Whenever I am dealing with my research advisees, I'm always encouraging them to look for certain debates and conflicts about the topic that you are coming up with, because the debates and conflicts will allow you critical thinking. Although it may entail a lot of time for analysis, but here I love debates and conflicts and of course themes in order for you to know more about the issue and you want to contribute in your research paper. Also, the pivotal publications. So take note of certain publications that might be of great help. Like, for example, the Beyond Books publication could be a pivotal publication in your knowledge about research writing on the 3 I's and the so on and so forth. And of course, the gaps. Take note that you have to consider the gaps when you are writing your review of related literature. Okay. So here are some of the example materials. I hope you can see this, but I am just highlighting here. Pivotal, okay, publications related to your topic. So in my topic, so I might look for certain titles. By mere glance of titles alone, I can sense that, oh, this could be possible, or this could be not that enough, or even after the title, go to the abstract. Okay, so if the title is catchy enough, that's good. But beyond that, before you put this as part of your sources, proceed with the abstract, because the abstract will give you all the key details. If there are certain gaps that can be considered, or trends that can be taken care of, or elements like those. So take note also on some of the keywords or key terminologies that we have to consider, like in these sources. You can highlight that in your preparation for the writing process. So the making of your highlighters are very, very helpful here. Do not highlight everything. Just highlight those you think are the themes or elements that might be very crucial in your paper. Okay, so example here is, aside from Facebook, there's also Snapchat. So this is now some pivotal publications or the latest publications that might be of help in your paper. Like in our case, the problematic or the sample working title that we took note of. Okay, and of course, I also want to highlight controversial or somehow very, very interesting publications that will also encourage you to dwell more and read more in relation to the problematique that you have. And that's what I said a while ago. Take note also on certain issues like what we call our debates and somehow problematique, so that you can also take note that, yeah, there are also other issues or the other side of this problem that I'm facing. So here, for example, in this material and in the abstract, experimental studies, however, suggest that brief exposure to one's own Facebook account does not negatively impact women's appearance concerns. So here, this could be a very revealing fact that as long as it's not all the time, there could be lesser factor among women. Okay, now after the reading stage, we'll move on to the post-reading stage. So in the post-reading stage, when you go over all the sources that you gathered, you have to come up with the system of storing and managing selected topics. You have to be systematic in managing information that you painstakingly took note of, day in, day out, night, and you're burning your midnight oil just to get through these materials. And of course, your reading task will be all in vain if you don't have a system of storing those materials that you're able to gather. It doesn't have to be high-tech. Okay, so the best thing or the best strategy here is to manage sources of information in a systematic way. Systematicity is very important for researchers. It is a very good skill also that you have to master, especially for our young researchers, because later on, you don't want to be at a loss, okay? sayang ang nabasa, sayang ang mga materials, tapos nawala siyang lahat. So be very systematic enough, even in the storing process. Again, it doesn't have to be very, very high tech. Even in your index papers, I rely on that when I was writing my thesis when I was in college. And it's very effective for me, and it worked well for me. That's why I make use of that index card strategy. But right now, in the presence of technology, I'll be sharing to you some of the strategies in storing your information. So if you're familiar with Mendeley, it is a very effective tool in organizing your sources. You can also search relative sources or relevant sources here, scholarly sources for that matter, that you can add up in your library, which is very good because the more you read, the more information that you'll get out of this. So all you got to do is to store it in your library, and series of information will be easily accessed as long as you saved it in your library or saved it in your library. Then everything will be there. Then you can go through it and get through and browse through all the necessary materials. It's for free, especially if you have your edu.ph Gmail or email addresses. Okay. So another technique or strategy is the most reliable Excel format, wherein you take note or you took note of all the sources that you're able to gather. You come up with certain headings here. It's up to you. As long as it fits in your system, take care of that. You don't have to start with a construct or concept, then the author, you can change it, literature review into author's name. Then next column, you have the type. What is this type? Is it what? Is it a journal article? Is it a textbook article? And so on and so forth. Then the theory, if you want to highlight theory there, and then write down the theory which you're able to gather. It's all right even to directly quote, okay, to directly quote the author in this case. Or if you want to paraphrase, go for it. If you want to summarize, so much the better. So that later on, all you got to do is to just copy and then paste it in your actual material. And then another element will be included, and the context would also be included in the column. So based on your own perception and your own understanding, it's up to you. You're the boss. Remember, you're the boss in the research that you're actually doing. Okay, you're the boss. Your thesis advisor will just be there to guide you and to ask questions, to ask relevant questions, to advocate or to come up with a devil's advocate in the possibility so that you will not fall short later on. Okay, so the system process or the system of storing materials will be very much dependent on your ability to comprehend and understand significant concerns that you need to include in your research paper. Okay, so here's just an example which you can go on later on. Here you can also highlight, color coding, which part of the research paper you might be using or which part of your actual writing could be used in such colors. So if it's under the introductory stage or if it's in the body stage or if it's in the conclusion stage, you can make use of that later on in the actual writing process. Okay, so again, the reading page is going to be worthless if you don't have a very good strategy in your post-reading. So after reading all the materials that you've been through. Or you can also rely on the Adobe version of all the files that you're able to gather across the internet. Okay, PDF version, safest possible. And in order for you to make sure that you have all these files allocated, make sure to save it in your email so that every time there might be fallback in the files in your laptop, easily you can have your backup. So that's the very practical thing to do in storing. Now let's move on to challenge number 5. In the post-reading stage, you have to come up with a good proofing. Okay, when you say proofing, you are now taking into account the need for you to look for strategies, to take note on relevant techniques in reading and actually or eventually the writing of the related issues. So the example for the working title, Social Media's Impact on Younger Generation's Body Image. So I have to have the following strategies that might be possible. I'm just limiting to 4. You can add more based on your teacher's understanding also. You can add some more. But here are the possible strategies that might be very helpful in dealing with the research. Okay, are you still with me? Or basing tanaw na mo dihag news, huh?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Sir Johnny, for
Yes,
answering.
sir.
Wow, very good, very attentive. I like this group.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
strategies.
Yes, sir.
Wow,
Yes,
here,
sir. We're still
hearing all
here.
Yes, sure.
yeah, hey. So go pa rin tayo. So strategies like this will be very important for you to take.
Butan.
Okay, number
Yes,
one, chronological. Number two, thematical. Number three, methodical. And number four, theoretical. Okay. So when you're talking about chronological, so in your post reading now, you have to analyze which of the material will fall into the category fit for a chronological strategy. So plan mo na yan, plano mo na kaagad. So chronological, maganda to. Somewhere sa introduction part, sa review of related literature. So because when we say chronological, there is always a time element involved. So it's up to you. Again, you're the boss. Pwedeng mag-start ka sa older research materials to the recent, or start with the recent, then to the older materials in your RRL. So it's the planning that matters. Remember that? Researchers that are very good at planning will never fail. Okay? So when we're talking about chronological, we take note on the aspect of being good at analysis. So when you go back to the stored material or to the materials you've read before, based on the storing system that you made, look for patterns, look for turning points, and again, look for debates. And in this process, you can make use of all these strategies in order for you to come up with a timeline. Okay, so that's the essence now. So when we look for the timeline in your chronological strategies, you take note of the key elements. Is it more of a theme? Is it more of a pattern? Is it more of a turning point, or it's more of a debate? And when those materials took place. So, for example, in our standard working title, Body Image and Media in 2008. So I'll take note of that. In 2010, there is a focus now on mass media. In 2015, a rise of social media. And then on 2018, there is a highly visual social media that you can continue. 2020, COVID, no, do not do that. So in 2020, you can come up with a certain aspect like more on an additional platform that is also a factor to reckon with when it comes to body image and social media use. So chronological is a very important strategy that we can master. For thematic strategy, from the word theme, we have to take note that we are dealing with our headings, or the key elements that we have to consider first, second, third, and fourth. And then you can follow on supporting details on this later on. So here in my case, I can start with the negative effects of social media, and I could have some subtopics underneath or under it, and then exemplification later on. And then I'll follow it with mental health issues among Gen Z. And then later on, the body issues among Gen Z. So it's up to you. And again, you're the boss, but always look for the theme that fits well and arrange accordingly to the aspect of your knowledge of your problematic. And of course, never underestimate that you should take note on the methods or the method strategy. Here, you will take note on whether the paper or the material that you read exhaustively fall under the method experimental, and why this is a very significant inclusion in your research paper, be it observational and why it is done. If it's qualitative, and what is qualitative, what type of qualitative research it could be. It could be phenomenological, it could be grounded theory, and so on and so forth. Or it could be quantitative or even mixed. So here you have to make sure that all these strategies are also mentioned within your writing of the RRL later on. And of course, last but not least, the theoretical underpinnings. So always remember, you are a researcher because you want to test a theory. You want to contradict a theory, or you want to question a theory. I love researchers who are not just always accepting all the theories given to us by the Western writers. It could be better for us to somehow question or somehow debate it or somehow give us a clear understanding or a possibility of an additional knowledge for that theoretical. Okay, so here under theory, of course, you have to have a very strong, solid foundation with your theories, the models, and even definition. So for example, you have the body image. What could be definition 1 according to the author? What could be definition 2 and definition 3? You can add your input or analysis into the definition later on in the writing process. If you want to contradict somehow, or if you think there is a lacking element in the definition, then you can add somehow. Okay, that's the essence of being a good researcher. It is not just about asking you to define based on the author, but based on the understanding of your own intent. So in the method, you can come up with your conceptual framework, such as the body image, for example, and then self-perception. And you can even include more or beyond self-perception. You can add types of self-perception, and it's up to you based on the material that you are able to gather. And finally, almost done, challenge number 6, presenting selected topics. So when we present selected topics, this is also part of the post, okay, post reading. So technically, you're done with your reading and you are actually now ready to make your draft. You're now in the brink of coming to the reality of your actual writing process. So what is the strategy? Develop strategies to take note on relevant techniques in expounding all related sources gathered for coherence. So as a good reader of the topics that you gathered through, you have to make sure also that you know how to write it down. Okay? And of course, when we're talking about our basic elements for the writing, be ready to take note on these 3 important parts of your RRL. Your RRL should have their introduction, the body, and your conclusion. Never underestimate the power of these 3 important parts. Me as an editor in various theses for masters, even for PhD, and even for my advisees in research writing, I am always looking for the flow. And when it comes to flow, I'll start with the biggest and significant chunks of writing: introduction, body, and conclusion. So for the introduction, it is important for you to restate your research question. This is very essential. I will look for this in an actual introductory part of your RRL. So be ready with that. So be mindful with this. So when you start writing your draft, you have to make sure that you can restate research question, or you can emphasize the timeliness of your topic. So many recent studies on problem of social media on behavior, so on and so forth. And then importantly, you have to make sure that your paper or your research is very, very in tune with the call of the times. Okay? Because this will add the level of motivation for your readers to read some more. Or you can highlight the gap, okay? Never underestimate the significant role of looking for the gaps on your literature. Well, there's much research study on social media. Few researchers, yan talaga ang mga keywords na tinignan natin. Few researchers have focused on body image. So an example like that, okay? So you can take note of the context, especially in the context of the Philippines. Okay, then let's move on to the body. And of course, you have to come up with your theme, the time period, and your methodological approach. The body is the meat of your RRL. So series of paragraphs after paragraphs will be written in your body. So be ready with, again, series of strategies that you can make use of. So for the main body of your research, you can summarize or synthesize, you can analyze or interpret, or you can critically evaluate, and you can, of course, structure your paragraph in such a way it's easy for the readers to understand all the queries. So for the summary and synthesis, you take note that, of course, summarize, give an overview of the main points. Synthesize, combine sources to make an overall point. And of course, here's an example, okay? Just an example based on our problematic or working title. So summary should start. It's very interesting strategy here. You can start with the summary, the one with the purple, and then followed with the synthesis. Okay, I love writers. I love my advisees who can synthesize. Synthesis is a very important skill. It's a higher thinking skill that you should master. Because through synthesis, even in just a matter of one sentence, you can take note a lot of authors having the same thought for that matter. And it will give me the impression that, wow, my research advisee is reading well because she's able to synthesize all the necessary author's idea into one sentence alone. It's not easy. It entails a lot of time to read through for this information. But this is also very helpful in coming up with your drafting later on. Analysis and interpretation. So analysis, of course, means to give a detailed examination to make a point. And when we're talking about interpret or to interpret is to give clear understanding about the topic at hand. So as as writers, this now will come into your knowledge. So wala nang citation kailangan dito kasi ikaw na mismo. Okay? This is coming from your own thoughts, in your own understanding, and in your own interpretation. So the highlighted elements there are your paraphrased material based on your understanding, or a summarized version of what you think is true, of what you think is what you analyze, and what you interpret based on the read material. Third, critically evaluate. Okay, so when you're talking about critically evaluate, we will make use of our critical thinking. So don't worry if looking for RRL material is a very tedious task, because indeed it involves critical thinking. And when we're talking about critical thinking, it is the suspension of judgment. You cannot write as much as you can get the data. No, when you do critical evaluation, you have to check various sources as much as possible, and you have to take note also on the arguments for that matter. And based on the arguments, then you can come up now with your own evaluation. Okay, so here is an example of a critically evaluated paragraph. However, in the era of rapidly changing digital technologies, the mass media paradigm is no longer adequate for understanding. A very strong evaluation here and may not be relevant to younger generations. So critical evaluation is a very important understanding of your advisor and the readers later on that, wow, this researcher is very good at evaluating. All the sources, all the materials gathered will now come into this one very short sentence for that matter, or paragraph for that matter. And finally, use well-structured paragraphs. Okay, this is a skill that you have to master. A well-structured paragraph should have the topic sentence. Never underestimate the importance of the topic sentence or the main thought of the paragraph, followed by the support details, the exemplification, the description, and all those things. And then if you have that, you can conclude somewhere in the end part of your sentence. And then you can come up with transitional devices to show cohesive elements in your study and coherence, of course, in your material. And of course, the last part, when you are now ready for drafting, is to think of your possible conclusion. Show how your research addresses the gaps. That's very important. You can also take note on how your paper can contribute to the existing knowledge. Whenever I'm doing my review of certain RRL, of my theses, or even master's thesis, when I'm doing my editing, I will always look for the contribution to the knowledge, because without contributing to the knowledge, your research paper will be in vain. It's going to be just a very problematic research paper just for the sake of it. But again, you have to think that your paper should contributing something to the knowledge that you belong with, or the field of expertise that you belong to. And of course, last but not least, in writing, pay attention to typographical errors. Okay, although you have your editors later on, you can ask please lessen the burden of your research advisors. Dami nilang ginagawa sa buhay. Okay, so in your stage as early as now, make sure that you have a clear idea on the rules of grammar, on the rules of mechanics, and so on and so forth. Para naman hindi mahirapan masyado yung mga advisors niyo later on. Okay. Pay attention also to the overusage of passive voice, because in research, although I'm not telling you that you don't rely on passive voice, but I want you to do active voice, because active voice is simpler to understand compared to passive voice. And your grammar teacher will always agree on this issue. Avoid repetitive phrasing. So when you want to acknowledge the sources, limit the use of according to. So vary it, so that it's nice to read upon, it's not repetitive, and it's very interesting to know other terminologies related to according to. It's very easy. You can just check thesaurus, and there are a lot of possible similar terms that we can relate to it. A lot of my friends, researchers, senior researchers, they have this rule. Whenever they write research paper, they don't want to use in the beginning part of their paragraph the article or the THE. That's a very good strategy, actually, because although I'm not discouraging, If you want to start your paragraph with the, second paragraph, lahat, again, you have to vary it because the reader will always have the urge of reading some more if they can sense variation or the non-repetitive elements. And finally, please limit informal languages because you're dealing with scientific work, and informal languages, aside from its, if it's part of your research paper, then you can make use of that. But if it's not, please limit the use of slang or words that are not familiar to a lot of people. And especially even if you have your so technical term, you can simplify it so that other people from other fields also will take note of certain words. Okay, and there are more actually. I'm just limiting it to 4 because due to time constraint. Time check. Meron pa ba akong time, sir? Hala, tulog na silang lahat. Or nanonood na ng news.
Hindi pa sa amin.
Gising pa, sir. Gising pa.
Meron pa,
Hi, sir.
Now, so when we're talking about all these things, we will now move on to the key takeaway. So that I'll be sharing to you tonight in reading related topics or understanding the strategies that you need to consider in the pre-reading, the reading, and the post-reading stages of the writing of your RRL. So number 1, writing the RRL is a challenging task, but researchers like you, even as young as you are, if you know how to find relevant sources, you can always gain advantage over those who are not. Okay. Number 2, key takeaway, writing the RRL is a challenging task, but researchers who know how to decipher reliable sources have edge later on in the finishing of the research paper. Writing the RRL, third, is a daunting task, but researchers who are critical at reading relevant sources will definitely succeed. Writing the RRL is a tedious task, but researchers who are good at presenting the scientific facts will ace the process. Writing the RRL is an arduous task, but researchers who are good at proofing the gathered facts finish the process with ease. Writing the RRL is an arduous task, but researchers like you listening attentively right now, even in this very problematic webinar because of certain technical difficulties, and you're good at presenting the gathered facts, you will definitely win in the long run. Okay, and last but not least, to end again, I'll bring back to my favorite memes. Always remember, you cannot cram the RRL. Okay, cramming, I know students like you, I've been there before, done that, been there, done that. Cramming, yes, and some students will say, I can think better when I am cramming. No, not in the case of RRL, because it will really show. Your thesis advisor will take note of it. Your defense panels or the panelists in your defense will take note of it if it's really crammed material, okay? And in the end, always pray. Don't forget to pray. Oh, research gaps, magsilutang kayo, sabi nga ni Miriam. So, espiritu ng kasipagan, dapat dadapo sa inyo. Okay? And finally, never underestimate this quote from Danish proverb, he who is afraid to ask is ashamed of learning. So be open to your limited, okay, especially to our young researchers here, be open to your limited knowledge about the issue. Ask. And the best person to ask is your thesis advisor, okay? And if your thesis advisor is too busy, okay, give them ample time, you can ask someone else, okay? You can ask people maybe from Beyond Books publications. We have a lot of experts here who can readily be available for you if you want help in coming up with your research papers, okay? And with that, here are my sources. I would say thank you so much to Beyond Books publication, and special shout out to the following doctors who gave the way for me to talk to you tonight. Without them, my talk will not be possible. Dr. Capulso, Dr. Carlos, Dr. Patungan, soon to be, Dr. Alfonso, Dr. Lavera, and soon to be Dr. Alfonso. With you guys, thank you so much for allowing me to share my advocacy to the young people who will be passionate about research writing. And of that, thank you so much for listening. Stay safe and stay healthy and stay updated. With that, thank you so much. And Erica, galit ka sa mukha ko, Erica. Ganyan talaga. Okay, Erica Jane. Okay. Thank you so much. And with that, with a heart. Thank you, Erica. I love you too, Erica. Thank you so much. And I'll bring you back to our moderator for tonight, Dr. Alfonso.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Emil.
Doctor,
Flores.
yung voice mo masyadong mahina. Please, lapit konti sa microphone. Thank you.
I'm so sorry. Yes, can you hear me?
Better.
Loud and clear, sir. Mas maganda na po ngayon kaysa kanina.
Yeah, okay.
I think there's a notification here coming from our internet provider. Talagang mahina daw po yung internet natin. That is why we are having our technical problem. And we are so sorry for the interruptions regarding po sa ating mga chat, yung mga nag-chat. We're so sorry.
Na overtime ako, sir. Sorry na overtime ako.
It is okay, sir. Okay lang po yun. So we've learned a lot from you. And anyway, I'm sure that all our participants and even I have learned a lot from your lecture, sir. Thank you so much.
Wow,
I think it is one of the most important things to ponder in framing a research study. Your discussion was extensive. Without a doubt, the information conveyed will be of great help, which is already to lend an indicator in our studies. Thank you so much, sir. You deserve a virtual applause.
You're welcome, sir. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now, to all our participants, to have a further understanding in our topic and discussion, you can tap the raise hand and be acknowledged, unmute your microphone, and you can ask our speaker, our ingenious speaker. You can also send your message on the chat box for your question. Pwede na po tayo magtanong ngayon sa ating speaker. Yes, we have a comment here. I'm really learning a lot. Let me read it. Oh, there's a question here. I hope I can. Ayan. Coming from, is this cynic or cynic Tenedero? Hi, sir. I'm really learning a lot from the research reading landscape that you have discussed. Wow. Can you give us an overview on the difference between review-related literature and related studies?
Okay.
That's the question, sir.
I love your name, Sir Cynic Tenedero. So basically, we're talking about the review of related literature and review of related studies. They are just the same. For me, they're just synonymous to each other. But it varies on the certain format of the institution that you belong. Some institution will use review of related literature, and some journal publications will focus on review of related studies or related studies. Another question, sir? Basahin mo, sir?
Yes, we have another question. I just wanted to ask if is it okay or possible to include the related studies and published research thesis dissertation in submitting an article journal to a highly indexed journals?
Oh, that's the thing. When I have talked to a lot of friends of mine who are really publishing into a high caliber publication, as much as possible, do not include unpublished thesis or dissertation. Okay, why? First things first, they're not merely cited. Okay, they are quite unpublished, and therefore we cannot double check. Okay, we cannot double check, or people who might be interested with the idea might not be able to double check, not unless the unpublished thesis or dissertation has this soft copy readily available. But a lot of unpublished research or thesis or dissertation are just books, big books in the libraries that we have. Okay, but very good question, very good point of contention there. Okay, so as much as possible, if you want your paper to be approved for a high index journal, you don't use that. You don't rely on that. There are a lot of other possibilities you can look for.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. And we still have another question here coming from Ron Louis de los Reyes. Ayan. Hi, sir. How do you deal with air quotation information that you want to include in your RRL? Do you just copy and paste it or do you paraphrase it?
Okay, so in the understanding between paraphrasing and direct quoting, as much as possible, if you want to put a little bit of information based on your analysis or based on your critical understanding, you can rely on paraphrasing because that's the most ideal. Okay, not unless you don't want to ruin a perfectly framed sentence or a perfectly framed quote or a series of sentences, for example, that you think it's really vital to have it that way. You can do the direct quotation, no problem with that. But after the direct quotation, I must hear from you. What is your stand about this direct quotation and why this direct quotation is badly needed in this part of your RRL? So be ready with that. Okay, got it, Ron? Okay. Next.
Thank you so much, Ron Louis de los Reyes. And I think our participants, sir, are really interested in your topic.
I'm very happy to
And
know.
let me read this one, sir. Thank you, sir, for a very commendable discussion. I have learned a lot from your topic. I will apply my learnings in my teachings. I'm a
Oh, we have teachers
research
here.
teacher
Wow, we
from
have
the Department
teachers.
of Education.
Wow, thank you, Sir
That
Mark.
was Mark James
Thank you, Sir.
Paat. And the last question, I think, sir, this will be the last question, coming from Gerald Escuyos. In terms of related studies and literature requirements, sir, are there any specific required numbers of RRL?
Yes, it depends on the level of your research writing. For us, PhD dissertation, a lot, and we are required to read even 1,000, okay, 1,000 or even 2,000, and then we could come up with just at least 200 or 100. Then we could have that. For people, for the senior high students, you could have more, but of course, as long as you have at least, for in this case, for example, you have 30 or you have 50, and that's it. That's enough. That's already enough. Okay, do not make it so hard on your part to look for certain materials. As long as all the materials can be addressed through it, then everything will be just fine. Okay.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, can we still entertain one question coming from Mark
Sure,
Lloyd
sir, no
Coloma?
problem.
Okay. Anyway, before the question, we have no, they are asking for the PowerPoint because your PowerPoint is very nice and very good. Anyway, this is a question coming from Mark Lloyd Coloma. I just want to ask if aside from Google Scholar, what digital archives or database could be used for our RRL?
Yeah, as I mentioned a while ago. So aside from Google Scholar, you have Mendeley. Mendeley. You take note of it and you can search for Mendeley. There are a lot of very good materials. All you got to do is to write the keywords that you want to address to, and Mendeley will be there. Okay, will give you a lot of information. And of course, never underestimate your own library sources in your own university or in your own high school if you have it. Library sources, especially if it's a digital online library, then you can have that. Okay, and what else? Make sure to subscribe to Elsevier and a lot of Science Direct, for example, and all those everything related to your topic for that matter. And there are a lot. Okay, just think of your RRL and don't hesitate. As long as you're phrasing your problem in a way that you can come up with good sources of material, okay, then everything will be just fine.
Thank you so much, sir. I think as much as we want to entertain all the questions,
Yeah,
we are so sorry.
time. Yeah, baka
Uh,
pagalitan
wala
tayo.
na po tayong time. And sir, you really deserve a big, warm round of virtual applause.
Of course, thank you so much to
I've
all
learned
our
a lot from you.
viewers.
Thank you so much for giving us your time. And to our dear participants and viewers in YouTube and Facebook. Hello po. Thank you so much. And now for our evaluation with regards to our topic and our performance with this research talk. And we will provide the link in our chat box. So makikita niyo po na ilalagay yung ating link sa chat box for you to evaluate our performance. Thank you so much. And let us now present the certificate of appreciation to our ingenious speaker. Yeah, that's our evaluation link. And for the certificate of appreciation, once again, sir, thank you so much. And let me read the certificate. Thank you so much. Research Stocks, an initiative of Beyond Books Publication, Macabebe, Pampanga, Philippines. This certificate of recognition is presented to Emilito F. Sarmago for being the resource speaker during the Beyond Books Publication Research Talks for 3 I's, Inquiries, Investigation, and Immersion, with the theme Reading on Related Topics, RRL, via Zoom, given this 14th day of April 2021, signed by the CEO, President Dr. Leonilo B. Capulso. Palakpakan naman po natin. Let's give a virtual applause for our speaker, ingenious speaker, Sir Emilito F. Sarmago.
Thank you.
Maraming salamat po, sir. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much for this token of appreciation. And I really appreciate it as well, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for imparting such knowledge, which will be of great help to all of us. And now would like to say thank you so much. I'd like to say thank you so much to all our technical working group. Let me see. A special thanks to the following. Of course, to all our participants and to all our viewers in Facebook and YouTube. Hello po sa inyo. Thank you so much. We'll also want to thank the technical working group of Beyond Books Publication Research Talks. We have Miss Maria Teresita Calapis, Mr. Jaben Lushan, our IT, and of course, yours truly, Mr. Lejan V. Alfonso, Miss Leia K. Ladera, thank you, Dr. Cyril Galang, our friend from Pampanga, Dr. Catherine Miranda, Dr. Riogel L. Santiago, Dr. Myra Flores, thank you so much for such a great help. Kayo pong dalawa ni Dr. Jaben. Attorney Jewel Nanes, yan. Dr. Arlene T. Carlos, our chair. And of course, the president and CEO of Beyond Books Publication, Dr. Leonilo B. Capulso. You deserve a big warm up virtual applause. Thank you so much. And of course, to our ingenious speaker. And now, Dr. Arlene Carlos, it's your turn for the Beyond Books Publication.
Yes, Sir Lijan. Once again, good evening to our viewers. Umabot po tayo ng 215 viewers tonight. Nakakaganda po ng pakiramdam kasi dumadami po ang viewers natin. So, on behalf of the Beyond Books publication, headed by Sir Leonilo Capulso, I would like to take this moment to thank our speaker, Sir Emil Sarmago of UST. Thank you very much, sir. Marami po kaming natutunan ngayong gabi. And don't forget to buy our new books. Pakitulungan po ako, IT, to flash our Beyond Books publication books lineup. We have different books in our BBP library. Okay, we have our 3 Eyes book, Inquiries, Investigation, and Immersion. Isa po ako dun sa mga author. Pwede po kayong bumili niyan kasi yan po yung pinakabago na libro namin. Another one is, next book please. We have the book teaching us how to write and publish your dissertation, and also how to write and publish your thesis. Ayan, for those taking up masters and doctorate, pwede po kayong bumili ng libro ng Beyond Books publication. And the most important book that we should have, How to Conduct Action Research in Education. Ayan po. Napakagandang libro po niyan. At meron pa po, and the research methodology, which is the combination of quantitative and qualitative research. Meron na rin po ako na copy niyan. Napakaganda po yung nilalaman ng mga libro natin sa Beyond Books publication. We have the Practical Research 1 and Practical Research 2. For Research 1, you have the qualitative, and for the Prac 2, you have the quantitative. So you can reach out through our contact number 0933-5564886. Ito po ang makakasagot niyan, yung pinakapagi po na CEO po ng Beyond Books Publication, Sir Leonilo Capulso. And finally, thank you to all our webinar viewers and to everyone involved in planning and holding this event. We are truly grateful for your valuable contribution and attendance. Thank you so much. Please watch us again for next week for another webinar series of 3 Eyes. Maraming salamat po. Good evening, Sir Lijan.
Thank you so much, Dr. Arlene D. Carlos. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank once again our speaker, Mr. Sarmago. Talaga pong marami po tayong natutunan for tonight. Thank you so much. And to all our participants and to all the members of the team, thank you so much for your assistance. Dr. Myra and Sir Jaben and Ma'am Arlene were here with us. To Dr. Leonilo Basas Capulso, thank you so much. And that is the end of our webinar series. And I hope we can see each other again. Palakpakan natin na lahat. Thank you so much and God bless you. This is Lejan Vergara Alfonso signing off. God bless you.
Sir Lijan, di ka po nag-picture. Meron na po bang picture,
yes,
sir?
Request lang po. Would like to request each and everyone po to please open your camera pala. Sorry. And may I request Dr. Myra and Dr. Jaben, if you can, ano.
Nag-download pa ako ng Zoom na ito, bish. Ang dami yun. Nasa 200, ano nga kami kanina? Ang dami. Hindi mo na sila magkakaga doon pa lang.
Yan po, paki, po. Yeah.
Panari.
Hi,
Magaling
Sir
lang.
Yugel.
Hello, Sir
Yugel
Lijan.
Hello.
Hello, sir.
Meron tayong number 1 fan ng Beyond Book, si Ma'am Lourdes Basconia. Ma'am Lourdes. Hello po.
Gabi po. Hello po.
Hello po.
Yung iba po, pakibuksan po yung camera. Sir Javen. Okay na po. Thank you so much. Ang galing talaga ng IT natin, Sir Javen and Doc Mai. Thank you so much. Maraming salamat po sa inyo, to our speaker from the University of Santo Tomas. Thank you so much, sir. Maraming salamat po
Maraming
sa lahat.
salamat
God
din
bless
po.
you. Bye.
Salamat po sa lahat.
Salamat
Ingat
po.
po lahat.
See you next time.
See you tomorrow, Sir
See you
Rio.
tomorrow.
Ay, yes, Doc Arlene. See you tomorrow. Sir Lijan, tanong mo na, Sir
Ma'am
Lijan.
Marlene, may question
Yes
si
po.
Doc Rio.
Ako
Yes
talaga.
po. Yes po, sir.
Sir Lijan, ikaw na magtanong. Siya po
Wala
yung
pa
may
daw po
tanong.
kayo bukas, yung time kung anong oras tayo papasok sa...
Yung line-up po natin bukas, yung sunod-sunod.
Hello, Ma'am Algin. Hi.
Hi, Sir Lijan.
Hello, Ma'am
Hello, Ma'am
Algin.
Hello. One of our faculty members at National High School. And isa sa mga panel namin, Ma'am Algin Lobo.
Ma'am Algin, marami ka nang isasabihin sa RRL.
Opo,
Pwede na siya
ma'am.
maging speaker next.
Last time ba account ginamit ko nung nanonood ako, kaya siguro din yung alam.
Okay po. Sir Rio, para bukas po, wala pa pong sinabi si Sir Doy, pero I think 1:30 po mag-uumpisa po tayo.
Okay po.
Pero yung call time, Ma'am, 11 o'clock.
Hindi ko po alam kung 11 o'clock natin. Dito 11 o'clock nila doon. Siguro yung 11 o'clock
SDG, Ma'am Marlene? Friend?
Ano po?
Dun sa SDG ba yan?
Opo.
Friend, nasa
Ah,
FB
oh,
live pa
man.
tayo.
Gusto kong
One pa yun.
acknowledge si Ma'am Lourdes.
Okay. 1:30 pa po yun, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Nung kami
Hello po.
nag-start, 1:30. Hello,
Ah,
Sir
okay.
Lijan. Excellent job.
Hi, Ma'am Cyril.
Okay.
Galing
So,
naman
kung-
natin,
Smile.
Kung 1:30 siya ng hapon, random
ng
yung
eight.
Ibang lugar to, ha?
Abot siya
Ma'am
ng
Sai,
Yes.
8 ng gabi?
Yes. Depende.
Wow.
Nung ako, luckily, number 7 ako sa lineup. nauna halos mga Philippines. Kaya medyo nasalang ako 2 or 3, ganun. Pero matatapos siya ng 8.
Ang ganda ni Ma'am Darlene Monteros.
Okay po. O so, ibig sabihin, Sir Lijan, hindi po ako pupunta sa inyo kasi aabutin ng alas 8. Si Sir Rio, unang-una daw siyang magsasalita, Sir Rio.
Bakit ako?
Ano lang yun? 15.
Siren, may nakita mo na ba yun? Yung
Ayan.
schedule.
Alam mo yung mga 10 to 15 minutes lang po yan, yung talk.
Yes, sir.
Ma'am Sai, more on
Gagawin ko ulit sa akin.
pindot-pindot ko lang naman yung yung PowerPoint ko.
Ako din.
Pinipindot-pindot.
Same here.
True, friend.
Oo.
True,
Si Sir
friend.
Lijan, prepared na po yata for tomorrow.
Wala pa po.
Oo,
ako nagagawa.
nakatoksido pa yan. No?
Ayun, no?
Ayan, out na daw tayo sabi ng IT. Hindi lang niya masabi.
See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow, God bless.
Maraming salamat po.
God bless you. Bye-bye.
Marvin, Sir Lijan, sa buong staff ng PPP. Maraming salamat po.